And the reason why I wanted to talk a little bit about sales and marketing is because for me, I think a lot of people skip over the kind of focus on sales or wanting to sell or having to put a target to, how much you're going to sell because it can make you feel a little bit anxious. It can make some of us feel under pressure, right? And actually, by putting a sales target onto your activities, it doesn't mean that if you don't do it, you're going to sack yourself, right? You're not going to lose your own job as the boss of your business if you don't sell. But selling, there are some major advantages of scaling. So selling is quite important. All right. So we're going to talk about that briefly this morning. And as I said, if you have any questions, you can let me know. And I would encourage you, if you have never ever set a sales target, if you've never thought about, you know, how to improve your sales processes, I would absolutely recommend that you actually think about what you can do to get this sorted because this is coming up to the next quarter. And if you don't have sales targets set, no matter how awkward it might make you feel, actually you're going to be doing yourself a disservice. Okay, so we want to make sure you've got this all sorted. Now, if you're new to my page, my name is V Robert. I've been doing branding and marketing now for over 28 years, and 16 of those years I actually spent doing branding and marketing via employment. So I was paid to do branding and marketing by employers who trusted me to lead on their campaigns, trusted me to bring in results, trusted me to actually get ideas generated, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. The only reason that I left doing those roles, by the way, is because, and I was very long term in all of them, quite senior up. I started my very first role in management for British Telecom, doing marketing management, brand and marketing management for one of their biggest departments on the graduate program, which was quite scary. But in terms of actually why I left, let me be clear, I didn't lose my job because I did something wrong. I was made redundant. And actually, I decided that, you know what, V, you've done this for 16 years. You better just do your own thing. Everyone's been telling you to do your own thing. You've been giving out advice for so many years. So I just decided to start my own business. And actually, it sounds so weird saying I just decided to start my own business because that's really not how it felt. It was very daunting, as I'm sure it was for some of you starting up. And there are many lessons to learn. But thankfully, because I had a background in sales and marketing, the selling and the marketing side of it was not that difficult. And actually, I know that for many of you, that's the bit that some of you really do struggle with. And that's why I decided that before we get into quarter two, I'm actually giving you some tips. Now, depending on when you watch this, you could watch this way after quarter two, okay? But I want to make sure that you've got this information so that you are armed with what you need. You might not action it straight away, but I would encourage you to do that, right? Because I've worked on a number of projects over the years. And if it's one thing I can tell you is, you know, without having goals, without having targets that you're working towards, many of you will waste time and many of you will waste money as well. You'll waste time and money doing the wrong things. And by doing that, that then leads to regret. By doing that, that then leads to missed opportunities. So I really want to encourage you today, as someone who's led on nearly 300 projects, and these are 300 projects that people have paid me to deliver and brought in results. I want to encourage you to consider what I'm saying today so that you are actually clear on what you need to do next. Now, if you're watching me live on YouTube or you're listening, please do make sure that you feedback so I know how this particular session landed with you personally. I want to make sure that I'm pitching this right. Obviously, I know my clients, I know my audience, but I also want to make sure that what I'm sharing with you resonates with you. Okay. So make sure you let me know how you found it. And, you know, as I said, as someone who's been trusted to work with various brands over the years, one of the biggest things that even sometimes big companies can get wrong is the strategy. There's no real plan other than, oh, I want to grow my business. There's no real document that says, this is what we need to do, by when, this is how we're going to get there. So if you don't have even a vague business plan, if you don't have even a simple brand strategy or marketing strategy, and if you're on social media and you don't have a content marketing plan where you're actually looking at what you're sharing, when, and on what platforms, because by the way, social media is not the same as marketing, and social media is not the same as content. These things are all very different. They're relevant and related, but they are different. Okay. If you don't have those kinds of plans, then we've got a little bit of a problem. So let's get clear here, all right? As someone who's a busy mother of four, you know, trying to also have a social life from time to time, although I've been told recently I'm getting old and boring. As someone who is actively going out and meeting clients, hosting webinars, coaching, and all of that good stuff, I can share with you that planning really does help. And actually, I'll be honest, when I don't have a plan, things go a little bit skewy. When I don't have things that I'm working towards, when I'm not looking at, you know, a particular goal, things can go off. In fact, what I do is I stop and start. And this happens even now. So I'm going to keep it raw with you. It's not perfect, but having a plan, even if it changes, is a sensible idea. Because marketing actually matters. If you want to grow your business, if you want to scale, if you want to improve what you're doing, the marketing side of things is so, so important. So let me ask you now, have you got sales targets? Are you working with sales targets? And by that, I don't mean like, do you want to make 6 figures by the end of March? I just mean, have you actually given some consideration to where you're at right now in terms of what you'd like to make, let's say, by the end of June? Have you actually sat down with yourself and said, right, I need to make £1,000 today. I need to make £7,000 in the next 2 weeks. What are you actually working towards? Because as I said, without the direction, you'll be doing a lot of things, but not necessarily knowing why you're doing them or why you're doing them in that order. So let's make this make sense. Let me give you some clarity today that I know will help you to rethink the way in which you are organizing your business, right? Because sales targets are key. If you want to move forward, if you want to have money in the bank, even if you want to work with non-financial goals, you do need to have some kind of goals, okay? So, as I said, we're only going to be here for a few minutes. In terms of why you need sales targets, you need sales targets because actually you want to make sure that you can focus. You need sales targets so that you can track your progress, so that you can actually identify what you're doing and where there might be gaps. If you're selling too much of a product, but you're not selling the product that you just launched, which is actually what you wanted to sell, then maybe you need to have a focus. Maybe you need to have a little bit of a roadmap, in other words, the marketing plan, to actually help you to get more sales of that product that you launched. And the reason you launched it is because you want to sell it, right? So if your stats are telling you when you're doing your monitoring, which I hope some of you are, that actually you're selling more of a particular product than the one you wanted to when you launched it like yesterday, then there needs to be a focus. There needs to be a plan. So sales targets help you to focus. They also help you to look at and concentrate on key growth areas. So in that example, the product you just launched, if that's a key growth area, you need to have sales targets around that. How much do you want to sell? Where are you going to sell it? Who might buy it? What are the channels that you're going to use to promote it? And so on. And also, let me just say as a disclaimer, this is not just about sales, hard selling. Selling and sales has a pre-sales, during the sale, and post-sale process, in my opinion. And I'm someone that's come from sales before I even started doing marketing. My very first job was doing outbound, phoning people from a list, outbound marketing calls to people that were in a list, and they were actually my target list, and I had to convert them. And it was literally that hardcore. I had to convert them, right? So in that example, I was able to pick up lots of different skills about selling. And then in my next job, I worked for Barclays Bank. I worked for Barclays Bank selling insurance. Now, whilst I was absolutely phenomenal in my very first job, doing outbound calls to complete strangers, selling them, you know, courier services, motorcycle, bike, 17.5 ton lorry services, my next job was selling insurance. I was very good at that as well. But in my second sales job at Barclays, what I learned very quickly was the power of the upsell. So again, what I'm sharing now is literally just top level. It's not like any detail, because there are lots of different things you can do to sell, and there are lots of different things you can do to monetize, and even set sales goals that are more achievable for you, because maybe you make them more realistic about your time and your resources available. But we're not going to get into that today, okay? I'm just giving you top line. The other reason why you might set sales targets, besides identifying strengths and weaknesses and what to focus on, is that it gives you or members of your team or even your suppliers and people that you're working with clear goals to work towards. And this is why I love when I'm paid by companies to come into their company and fix their marketing. I do like to say, like, is everyone clear? Is everyone working and singing from the same hymn sheet? Because if you're not, that can really, really affect your marketing results. And also, setting sales targets keeps you on track and makes sure that you've got a sustainable cash flow. So let's just say you've got a target to make £500 by the end of the month, for example. Small target, but it's fine. So £500 by the end of the month might be your target. Actually, you're then clear that out of that £500, you might only need £100 of it towards your next marketing activity. The other 400 you might put away, some of it for saving, and some of it you might put away towards materials and costs and even staff costs. But you're not going to spend all of it, right? So you've got a backup there, you've got some cash flow there, you understand how you're going to use your money. And in an ideal scenario, you're able to actually forecast what you're going to make, what you're going to save, and so on. And you should be doing that months ahead. And I know that's not possible for all of us. Now, the simplest way to set your target is to look at, as I always say, what you've done in the past. If you're a new business owner, that might not be possible. But look at your previous sales, look at industry trends, and set your targets and be realistic. Set your targets thinking about what you've actually done to date. The year-on-year comparison, what you did this time last year, what you did this time 2 years ago, because there may be patterns in consumer buying behavior. There may be patterns in the types of content, for example, that performs really well, that's most likely to convert. So make sure you give some thought to these things. You might want to set specific growth goals to grow your business by, I don't know, 65 participants by the end of 48-hour period, to bring in £7,000 for the month. But actually, if you can align your targets with specific growth goals, that will massively help you as well. Now, if you feel a bit anxious when you hear me saying money, numbers and money, that's something you might need to address. It might be a mindset challenge that you have, because actually, if you want to grow and if you want to sell, you do need to put yourself in a situation where you can comfortably say what you want to sell and by when. And if that changes or you don't hit your target, that's okay, because you're the boss of your business. So look at industry trends, look at seasonal trends, look at what's going on around you, and just be realistic and manage your own expectations. And then finally, make sure that you have identified the relevant sales channels, whether that's events, whether that's going out and doing interviews, whether that's paid advertising, whether that's doing webinars, paid courses that you then upsell. You've got to make sure you're clear on what you're doing. So my final tips are: make sure you set a budget, whether you set a budget for 30 days, whether you set a budget for 60 days, whether you set a budget for 90 days or even the year. Make sure you're clear on your budget, and then make sure that you have got a sales target that is realistic. And if you lack the information that I've suggested in this particular session, go to a library, go to the internet, get the stats, do the research, primary research, go out and ask people, secondary desk-based research, do it via your computer, go to the British Library. They've got a whole team that can help you to research. But make sure you've got that data before you start doing predictions around making £1 million months. And also make sure you manage your expectations, because if you want to make £1 million in a month, you certainly do need to have time to be able to kind of orchestrate that, and also budget in most cases to promote and market. Okay, so think about these ideas I've shared today. Let me know whether or not any of them resonate with you. As I said, if you are not already connected to me on LinkedIn, then absolutely make sure you connect to my company page. You can find out what's happening there in terms of my courses, my trainings, etc. I am currently running a training at the moment, which is going to start soon. It's a 44-day coaching program. And with that coaching program, I'll be working with you on specific areas of your branding and marketing, whether that's setting up your emails, whether that's looking at your LinkedIn, whether that's getting a sales process in place, whether that's looking at your audience type and how to attract them, whether it's devising compelling offers that will sell. We're going to be working on whatever you need in terms of your marketing and branding to actually focus and get it done within 44 days. I know a lot of you have struggled with getting your branding and marketing organized, because maybe you need a little bit of hand-holding, and that's absolutely fine. But maybe until you get that hand-holding, you're not going to see the results and outcomes you want. So food for thought, all right? Food for thought. And I would love to hear from you if you have any questions. I'm going to dip off now, but I will say that selling isn't a swear word. If you've got my planner, you'll know that selling is not a swear word. You can order my planner online, insight2marketing.com/products. Okay, so go and check that out. You can also find a video here right on YouTube all about the planner. So check that out as well. Take care, and I'll speak to you.